So what do they call you?
But they call me, well, I just go by my street name was Duke, Duke, like the Dukes of Hazzard, you know.
Duke, what are you incarcerated for, sir, and how long is your sentence?
Okay, I'm incarcerated. Got incarcerated in 1997 for second degree murder of Steve Perez.
Where are you from out here on the streets?
Um, I'm from Sacramento, California. Most of my family, they're from Southern California, but they moved to Sacramento when I was a baby. I mean, because my dad was in San Quentin prison, so my mom always tried to go to prisons that were closer to him.
At any time important in your life, did you belong to any type of gangs, groups, organizations, or anything like that, sir?
Oh yeah, so like growing up, just seeing that with my dad and being a prison baby, you know, taking a Greyhound bus rides with my mom's man to these big old prisons, and then seeing all these guys with tattoos and muscles and big old draw shots and stuff. I didn't know what a gang member was, but later on down the line, I was kind of like born and indoctrinated into generational gang culture. When my dad got out, again, he was from a certain gang, Northern California gang, and then so growing up, I didn't like no typical gang member like get on the porch and me jump you in. It was kind of like they were family, you know, from the gate, and so you know, just adopting those beliefs that loyalty to these are my brothers, you know, in the street and my family. And so growing up, being documented as a gang member at age 12 and 13, just by hanging around the older guys, you know, and not really knowing what it was.
You had mentioned that your father was incarcerated, man. At what age? How old were you?
So as the story goes, I was conceived in a family visit. My mom was like 18. I think my mom was 17. My dad was 18. They met in East LA. And as the story goes, he got arrested, whatever. They got family visits up in St. Quentin. And I was conceived in prison. I was born in Sacramento, California. But again, growing up throughout my life, my dad was in prison. So I think up to the age of 8 years old, he got out. And but throughout those years, just always going to prison and see my dad there, you know.
May I ask how long was your father incarcerated for, and what was he charged with?
So he was charged with a murder and attempted murder, right? And the laws changed. He got an appeal. He got on that, and he was. I remember him being in Folsom. You know, went to St. Quentin, went to a number of prisons down the line, and being in numerous family visits. You know, that was my altercation with my dad, like spending time with him in prisons. You know, mostly until he got out.
And what crazy set of circumstances that those same prisons that you once visited as a young child,
Right, right.
now you're in there.
Right, and again, adopting the normalcy of it, right? So, like, um, not to jump ahead, but you know, moving forward in life, where I became a so-called gang member, drug dealer, and criminal. Um, Doing time was nothing. Doing time was nothing. When I first got locked up, I seen my cousins, I seen friends there, and it became like, hey man, I remember this when I was a kid, but I just ain't nothing. You know what I mean? And it didn't mean nothing. It didn't fear. I had no fear of being incarcerated. And again, when I was a child, and I wanted to be like my dad, right? Because we look up to our father figures, right? And so I want to be just like him. Like if my dad was a lawyer, I probably would have wanted to be a lawyer. And if my dad was a cop, I probably would have wanted to be a cop. But unfortunately for me and my circumstances, my dad was a gang member and drug dealer, and I wanted to be just like him, you know, and I knew I was coming to prison at a young age. So it was something I aspired to be. If you look at it like that, looking back at my life, you know.
So what Norteño neighborhood did you end up associating with, and at what age, and what led you to that, man? I know you said your father, I know and all that, but at that point in time, Was there someone else in your life that was perhaps very influential?
Um, I would say like my uncles and just people in my neighborhood at the time. We moved around a lot, so again, like lacking that true father figure, without the dysfunction. Oh wow, I would say dysfunction is everywhere in my neighborhood, but just like when I was on my own, and I didn't have a father figure like the older so-called homies in the hood, right? There were no Daniels, and they would say, man,
this call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
this is how it goes, this is what it is, and this is the life, and we got your back. So again, just having that acceptance, right? And again, like I just emulated what I seen. They wear this color, I'm wearing that color. They rock like this, I rock like that, because also it kind of correlated with a lot of things my dad told me what a man was. We don't back down, men don't cry, this is how we handle shit, we don't call the police. And so the influences in my life, in my neighborhood and stuff, reinforce exactly what my pop said what a man is. So again, of course, I'm gonna gravitate to that since my dad ain't around and my mom's in the street hustling. These guys are my father figures. They're my mentors. They're the people I look up with. They're the guys with the nice cars, with the women. So I want to be just like them. That's successful to me. That's what being a man is: having money in your pocket. Not being a punk. Not backing down from nothing. So yeah, most definitely, those are my influences in my life growing up.
Were you already associated with the lifestyle once your father was released?
Yeah, most definitely, man. I was out there already hustling in the streets, and he would just be like, "Hey, man, so, he'd be dropping off guns to me. He was the one who taught me how to really like bag up dope and have criminal networking. Whether it was from stealing cars or um, boosting clothes to selling drugs. You know, looking back, I think he was just trying to teach me how to survive in the street the only way he knew how, right? So, and just looking back at that, like, again, like normalizing it, like looking back now, it's like, man, that was some wrong stuff to do, right?
Do you have
But
resentment towards him?
oh, yeah, I had great resentment. Not anymore, right? Because I went through a process that I already learned to forgive, man. Because he passed away a long time ago in a drug deal, man, when I was like 17, 18. But, carrying that resentment, as a child not having a father and him leaving us like, in prison, and just like a lot of resentments for him beating the shit out of my mom, beating the shit out of me, the physical and verbal abuse, and and psychological abuse, man, like most definitely, man. So, but then looking back, it was true because like you could hate someone at 1 minute, but then want his love, like that was me, like hating them, but then trying to get that boy from a man, right? And it seemed like the only way he showed me attention was when I did bad. Like if I knocked someone out or I got suspended from school from fighting, his first question be like, "Did you win?" You know what I mean? I'm like, "Yeah," and he's like, "All right, cool, man." So yeah, I resolved that a long time ago though. Like learn to forgive him, and
What
move
about in
on.
the perspective of, do you have resentment towards him not leading you down the right way? It almost seems that, and I hate to say it, but it almost seems like you've never had a chance. The one person that was supposed to steer you down the right path and make sure you'd become a successful person was your father, and he did the complete opposite. He helped you, go down a bad path. Do you have resentment for that?
But yeah, again, like not today, right? I only say that because I've been working on myself for many years now, right? However, for like the first 30 some years of my life, most definitely, right? Because when I look back in hindsight, I was a good kid, right? I smiled a lot, I liked hugs from my mama, I showed affection. But it seemed like when my dad got out of prison when I was like almost 8 or 9, all that shit changed. Because when I smiled, he slapped that smile off my face and say, "Ain't nothing funny. What the fuck are you smiling for, boy?" Or if I go cry and give my mom a hug, I'll get my ass beat. And if my mom protested, she'd get her ass beat. And so we get locked in the closet and shit like that, right? And so like that smile disappeared, man, and what replaced it was a frown, and then later on a mean mug in my life. So again, like just suppressing all that and adopted a new persona, man, so to speak. You know, that boy whose name was Ruben became Duke, and Duke wasn't no punk, and Duke didn't show no emotion because my dad always taught me, hey, that's a cold fucking world, right? Show no mercy. So this is why I'm teaching you this shit, boy, because you ain't gonna get mercy in this world. And so that resentment built and built and built, but I shoved it in deep inside, man. And the only way I learned to express that in the streets was to show that anger through violence. You know what I mean? My dad could beat me and I couldn't do shit, but I'll be damned if I let anybody punk me like that on the streets. You know, so that resentment was there like for many, many years.
When was the first time that you seen violence? I'm talking before your case. What was it? What was it that you seen? Is it something that you've done that perhaps might have desensitized you a bit?
Oh man, I mean, from 5 years old, man. You know, my uncle was in the house and at a house party, and I seen them stab the shit out of each other. And my uncle went to prison for life. He killed somebody in front of us, and being in the back of the car, my mom.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
You know, my mom driving the car, taking my uncle to the hospital, and his friend was in the back seat with me, stabbed up, and guts were hanging all over. And I'm a little boy of 5 looking at this. And my mom's in the front seat. I could see it clear as day. She telling me, look out the window. Me, don't look at that. But it looked like a bunch of worms coming out of his stomach. And I was like super freaking traumatized. And she's like, just look out the window. And we're pushing down the freeway, man, trying to get this dude to the hospital. And so that was my first recollection of violence. And, you know, I didn't go to counseling and none of that shit. You know what I mean? They just say, matter of fact, to this day, even when I was young, my mom would make me relive and recant that story to other people. Like, oh, he was there. You know, he'll tell you the whole story. Me got some good memory, like it wasn't nothing, right? And, you know, I tripped out on that. And so, again, growing up in the hood, you know, seeing people OD, you know, in the bathtub, they're throwing them in the bathtub with ice, you know what I mean? Or seeing someone at a house party and get shot, stabbed, and it was normalized, man. Again, that was the world that I lived in. I mean, I didn't know nothing different. To me, it wasn't bad. It was just, this is what's up. I guess this is what happens in the world, you know?
You have 60 seconds remaining.
Ruben, how old were you when you caught your crime, man?
I was 24 years old when I caught my crime.
Can you tell me at that point in time in your life, a few weeks before this crime, what was going on in your life? What were you doing?
That's a good question. Well, I'll say a couple of weeks before that, I was recovering from being shot in a shootout. And so, like, not having my normal job that I was doing construction, I ended up being a clerk at a franchise tax board, but I had got laid off. And so when I got shot, I was recovering. I'd already been shot, like I'll say, 3 months prior. And so within them 2 weeks before the crime actually happened, I was barely getting my walking feet. And you know, have my own place and stuff. And but looking back at what was going on in my life, man, super paranoia. You know, I was selling drugs. You know, multiple weapons in my house. You know, living just drama. You know, from the streets and gang violence. You know, I was turned up. You know, so it wasn't really a peaceful life. You know, high strung at that time. You know. Figured because I had money in a house, I was cool, but I wasn't. You know, it was a constant state of survival mode, you know, in my mind.
Who shot you?
That was undetermined at the time. It was just a random like shootout, and I went to the hospital, and that was that really. You know, got surgery.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
So they hit the artery and they sewed my leg up, whatever, and that was that. You know, they asked questions like, "Hey, who shot?" I don't know, or just shootout at a club in the parking lot. And that was that. You know, they never followed up, and I never, followed up. I was like, it is what it is.
All right, Ruben. I know some of these things can be hard to talk about, but I must ask you: would you be able to take me there to that day, on this unfortunate day that your whole world turned upside down, man? What was it that happened that morning? You woke up. Who is this individual? What was your relationship with him? What was it? What was it that happened, man?
Man, so again, like, just looking back at that life, I knew the individual. We had been friends for a long time. He had just got out of prison. And, we met up, we were drinking, and everything was good. And we decided, like, we'll meet up later, we'll catch up. He just got out of prison. He later on that night, around 11 or so, we ended up, me and a couple girls went up to the pool hall and met up with a bunch of other friends. And he was there, some drinking happened. We were all drunk. And we went aside, and there was another individual there that was doing time with him, and they had like altercation. And so we all went to the bathroom and had a conversation. It was argument, and we ended up going outside because the guard was like, "Hey, y'all got to take it outside." Long story short, man, not to get into too much detail, due to parole stuff, and not only that, just court. For lack of a better word, man, taking the life of this individual, this person I once called friend, over what I perceived as disrespect. That word respect, was associated with the image I portrayed at that time, and I took the life of him. There's no rationalizing and minimizing or any of that, man. At the end of the day, full-heartedly responsible for, what I've done. And looking back now, man, it's like, wow, man, over words of anger, I changed not only my life for the rest of my life, but his life ended that day, and the lives of his mother and his family, and even all the patrons at that place that night. I changed their life forever, and so that was basically the gist of it, man.
How did you get caught that night? I mean, did you run? Did you attempt to get away?
Oh yeah, I ran because again, like that criminal mindset. Oh man, what just happened? And in reality, it was slow motion. I didn't know what happened till it happened, and I was stuck. Like, what the fuck just happened? This didn't just happen. And running, leaving the scene, right? Running. That fight, or freeze kicked in. I was gone. Later down the line, the cops were looking for me. They left a little card at one of my houses, and I called them and I said, "Hey man, what's up?" And talked to this gang task force guy that knew me, and he was like, "Hey bro, we need to have a conversation." So I called him. Eventually ended up turning myself in, and the rest is history,
So now you're in county, man. What were those first few days like, man? And is Sacramento County Jail, is it a treacherous place? Is it violent? Is there
Oh
politicking
man.
going on, man? What was your experience like arriving there?
Well, again, like, no fear of incarceration, like, number one, right? I was just like devastated of the impact of the crime had on me at that time. And again, keep in mind, not caring about the victims, right? Not caring about the victim's family at that time, caring about me. Like, oh shit, I just got busted, and I didn't do shit. You know what I mean? My mind said I didn't do nothing. I'm keeping quiet. this never happened. You got the wrong cat. You know what I mean? County jail again embraced. You know, all the homies, what's up, boy? What's that? Oh man, you facing a high one. Oh bro, there was about 20 other guys facing murders there, man. So again, if anything, individuals feared me as opposed to me fearing that. There was no fear of incarceration. And so, but the level of stress, the level of depression, the level of trauma was intense. Hating the world and starting to see the world in which I knew unfold around me. Not trusting nobody. Relationships that were once there were gone. I started seeing people's true colors, and this is a message for all y'all out there who think that the homies are gonna stay around forever, or your girl's gonna be there. Your family got your back. All that shit was out the window when you're facing a murder, right? They may be there for months or a couple years, and after that, good luck if they're still around after 5, right? But I had to learn that. But again, that's a choice I made, right? So again, county jail, man, just high level intensity, stress. I got in multiple fights, right? I got in multiple little riots. I did removals. I did things because I didn't give a fuck. I didn't give a fuck about my life, and I damn sure didn't give a fuck about nobody's life at that point. If any ounce of me believed in God, that shit was out the door. I only prayed to God to get out of prison. Like, hey, God, please help me, man. I'll change my fucking life. But that was a lie. Once I got found guilty, I threw the Bible. Like, man, F God, F the world. It is what it is now. So that was that. So it was very stressful.
Once you were handed out that life sentence, is it safe to say that threw away that innocence that perhaps you might have had, and that joyful that all of us have a kid in us to some extent. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? We all have that joy in us. Is it safe to say that once you received that life sentence, it was out the window and you became a cold person?
Um, I would say this, right? That kid was gone a long time ago, man. That kid was gone at the age of 13 when he was beat down, when he was changed, forever. So that kid was no longer a kid. That kid was gone longer before I committed my murder, right? And but when I did get sentenced, the only thing I cared about, right, I'm gonna keep it real, was when the victim's family got up there and spoke their truth about their pain and their suffering and what I had took from them, right? Like the judge gave me straight up 51 years to life for a second degree murder. I didn't hear that. I didn't really care about that. The victim's family, Steve's family, got up there and spoke their truth, and I didn't care about that. I was looking for this chick in the audience. She was gonna come see me, man, right? And I was looking for my mama, and I see my mama, and when Steven's mama called me a monster, I see my mama jump up and say, "My son ain't a monster." And I guess one of Steve's brothers or cousins jumped up, and my brother, I have a brother that jumped up and like, "What's up?" So all the cops rushed my family and escorted my mom and my family out the courtroom because, again, gang related. And I had a knot in my throat because I seen my mama get escorted. I didn't have a knot in the throat because I got time. I didn't get a knot in my throat because I felt some kind of guilt or remorse for what I done. I felt remorse because I seen my mama get taken out, right? And so that's the kind of individual I was at that time, right? Just to get a picture of that, man. That's who I was back then. A broken, empty vessel, man. Selfish in the mud.
Now that time has passed, and man, I hate to point this out, but if it's obviously, man, you've done one of the worst things imaginable that you can do to another human being, and
Yup.
that's take the life to someone's kid. Have you had time to reflect on those words that and see her expressions towards you, and see how much of a monster you truly were? Were they right?
Man. So the word monster, right? They were definitely right. You know, monsters come in all shapes, sizes, and forms. You know, I didn't think the person that loved me and was supposed to be my caregiver would turn out to be a monster, right? So some monsters are built, some monsters are created. You know what I mean? And so for me, their words are 100% true. Me looking back today, 100%, right? So I'm gonna tell you a little story real quick. In 2010, after I did all my time in prison, up to that since '97 to 2010, right? So again, in prison, nothing changed, man. I was still destructive. I was still terrorizing people in the joint. I was creating victims in the joint. I was making money in the joint. I didn't care about nothing. So one day I'm in assay, for assaulting another inmate, and I get a letter from a woman that tells me a story about a monster that took the life of her son that was 23 years old. And in this story, she talked about forgiveness and how the hate that she had for this monster was destroying her life every day. And at the end of that story, the monster was me. And at the end of the day, the mother was Stephen's mother. And for some strange reason, I was sitting there, my hands shaking. I felt my face wet. Why? I didn't know. It was strange to me. This shit was foreign. Are these tears? And I got mad and I crumpled that letter and threw it against the wall. Like, how dare her, write me, right? So I sat there and thought about a whole lot of shit. And whatever it was, it melted that cold heart. So I grabbed that letter and I took the pieces out and I kept that letter with
You have 60 seconds remaining.
for many years, right? And that was the first moment in my life that I ever felt remorse or guilt or shame for what I did.
I must ask, did you respond to the letter? Did you write back?
Fool, that's a good question, man. So look, I tried to for many, many years, right? I kept that letter with me. I didn't know how, man. So part of the story of my change, right, was because I wanted to answer that letter, man. I read it over and over and over, and I did not know how to answer this, man. What words could I say, right, that'll make anything better for this woman, right? What words could I say to her that would stop that pain, right? So I didn't know, like I didn't feel worthy enough yet to respond to that letter. So what I did is to honor that, I started changing my life little by little, man, right? And I remember going to the mental health place and asked them, hey, man, I need help. Like I got all this anger in me, man. I'm violent. I want to know why, And so through that course, I started taking like anger management classes, talking to a professional about my childhood traumas, about the things that were unresolved as a kid, right? And then learning little coping skills, what are triggers, things like that, right? Then I went to another group. It was called CGA. I didn't even know they had a group called CGA. It's Criminals and Gang Members Anonymous. I'm like, what the heck? What is that? And so what I found out in that group was there was people just like me, looked just like me, acted just like me, did shit just like me. And in my eyes, they wasn't no punks, right? Because I had seen some of these guys on the line. And I'm like, dude, what is this group? And what I found out is whether you were white, black, north, south, it didn't matter, man. We were addicted to that lifestyle, man, in one way or another. You know what I mean? And we all had something in common. We all grew up in this dysfunction that was repeated over and over again, sometimes generational, man. And so when you talked about the cycle of that was compulsion, obsession, and progression, man. And looking at my life, man, that's what I was, right? So it took many other years, right, to get right. And I wasn't right because even though I got rid of a lot of these beliefs and a lot of these character defects, I was still on the fence. Like, what has changed? I want to change. What does that shit look like, right? So I went to Victims Impact. I went to like probably every group you could think of, man, just trying to discover some words in me that could honor this woman who lost her son, right? But in the process of doing that, something changed, right? It was called discovery. I started discovering, man, this is what led to this, man. This is what led to that, man. And so that magic word recovery started coming into my life, man. So I gave myself the opportunity to educate myself. I started going to school. You know, got my high school diploma in here. You know, got my degree in here, associate's degree in psychology. And I was able to mentor others, facilitate, and write that letter to Stephen's mother, you know, to the DA, to the community, you know, to all the people I harmed. And so for me, that was a liberating moment, you know. So that monster that we talked about earlier is caged up deep inside me now, right? So that little boy named Reuben that was in the cage.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
Today, Reuben's talking to you on the phone. That monster that was Duke, he's caged up. And I was able to share my truth with Stephen's mother when I went to court in 2021 for resentencing. And I had an opportunity to sit before Stephen's mother, that lady, that woman who wrote me that letter so long ago. And I had that letter in my hand. And when the judge said, hey, you have an opportunity to speak, Mr. Manuelos, I didn't take it to say, hey, man, I deserve to be out today. I took that opportunity to look at her in her eyes, and I told her, you know, to say I'm sorry is not enough, you know. But I showed her the letter she had wrote me in 2010. I said, man, you're the reason that I changed. And I was able to tell her I'm sorry for not honoring her words all those many years ago, and not really acknowledging her pain and her family's loss. And she shed a tear with me, man. In that moment, I was free. You know, so there was a great burden lifting off me. You know, I could never change what I've done. You know, we can't change the things we've done in the past, man. But it's how do you honor it today, man? So I told her today, I can't just tell you I'm sorry for what I've done, because that's never going to be enough. So what I do with my life today, you know, I help others not be the man I was. So I'm in a youth diversion program. I work with kids 10 years old to 17. We take them on prison tours. I share my life story. You know, we teach them life skills. Not only that, I'm in Valley State Prison, and they have a youth offender mentor program. I'm a lead mentor here. I work with inmates that are 18 to 25. I run classes on changing lives through understanding your belief, and that's a CBT, cognitive behavior therapy sessions. Again, I have an associate's degree in psychology. I'm a certified and registered substance abuse disorder counselor, and I'm working on my bachelor's degree. So for all this, I do for Steve. You know, every day it was a constant choice to change my life. I had to change my narrative. CDC didn't force me to do none of that. I could have been that same monster on the yard doing push-ups, right? But because she wrote me that letter, something changed in me. She looked at me like I was a human, but also put it in perspective, like, what if it was your mama? You know? What if someone hurt your mama? What if someone took your kids? How would you feel, man? So today, we talked about rehabilitation, right? I always like to say, man, I was never rehabilitated. You know, rehabilitation means, you know, to restore back to normalcy. I was never normal. So now, you know, I found out what rehabilitation was, and I apply it today. You know, I teach people about Victims Impact every week. That's my community service for the community here. I help them understand empathy and remorse about the crimes that they've done, whether it was vandalizing or whether it's child abuse and neglect, man. I help them understand their empathy and remorse, man, and what their crimes do to the community today. So again, man, that monster that was once there is gone. My past does not define me, man. And for those individuals out there who think it's too late, that you can't be redeemed, man, there's a movement out there, man. But it starts with you. You know, a lot of people believe in us that people deserve second chances. And again, man, don't make excuses for why you did what you did, man. But own that and learn from it. You know, but you got the choice ultimately, man. I had a choice to make. You know, did I want to continue to create victims, or do I want to do something different with my life? So, like, in closing, like, really, unless you have any more questions, it's like I read this book by Viktor Frankl, man. I think it's called Man's Search for the Meaning of Life. Well, in that book, man, there's a passage he says, you know, everybody dies, but not everybody lives. So I thought about that for a long time. Like, what does that mean, dude, man? And looking back at my life and learning what I know in psychology and human development, man, I was in constant survival mode at that time. So I was never living. I was in hypervigilant state of mind, man, always trying to survive, right? But today, I'm living, you know. I've been in prison 27 years.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
But I could honestly say, man, I'm a free man. I'm a free man in my mind, because Viktor Frankl's whole message was purpose. I found my purpose today, man. You know, part of my purpose is healing. You know, like I say, man, I went from a killer to a healer, man. And that's where I'm at today. And I'm proud of what I do every single day. I help somebody. And in the process, I help myself, man.
Wow, what a turnaround. What a turnaround.
Right.
And what a story, man. It brings me great joy to hear these words come out of your express, man, and hear you express yourself, bro. I wish you a lot of success, man, and I hope you get another chance out here, man. They're letting a lot of lifers out, man, and I hope you get action to that, my friend. With that being said, do you have any last words that you would like to express to anybody out there?
Number one, first and foremost, right, to Steve Perez's family, man, that I really, really hope that healing has begun in their life, and that I don't seek forgiveness, man, you know, but I do wish them all peace in mind that they could get out there. And also for, like, the youth, man, because I deal with youth every day, whether it's from the kids from the community or the young men that get life sentences, man, with 18, 19 years, man. I want to leave you with a message, man, that there's always a vacancy here in state prison, man. Like, it's a money-making operation, man, right? So it starts with you, man, to break the cycle out there, man. If you're going through abuse out there, if you're going through neglect, you know, depression, mental health is a real thing out there, man. You know, I encourage each and every one of you guys, man, to seek help. There's people out there that will help you. If I look back at my life and I had somebody that could have helped me or sat there and talked with me, I probably wouldn't be in the situation I was today, you know. And also, man, the drugs, man, like, the drugs is way different today, man. You know, be mindful, man. Like, life is too short, man. You know, and that's I think that's it with my message out there, man. Just to, man, love one another, man. I mean, but first I get it, man, because first you got to understand, what does love look like, man? For some of us, we don't even know what that is, man. It took me like 30 years, 40 years to know what loving means. And first it starts with loving yourself, man. Love yourself first, man. Don't try to be something you're not. Take that mask off, man, and be the kids that you were born to be, man. Be your genuine self.
Man, Ruben, it was a great pleasure to hear your story, and I really appreciate you allowing me to be able to share it, bro. And I wish you a lot of success on